The first medication that they put me on was Xanax. Do you see that move? Since this video is about one of the many coping mechanisms that there are, I just felt the need to say this for like the millionth time, so I'm sorry to keep saying it, but just as a reminder that I'm not actually discouraging, I'm not necessarily encouraging anything either. I'm just talking from my own personal experience with what I've experienced, what I've tried, things that have worked for me, things that haven't worked for me, and part of the reason is because of this. A lot of times when one thing works for one person, they push it on someone else. And in this case, we're going to talk about medications and my first experience with medication. The thing is, I felt like something was wrong with me because, spoiler alert here, it didn't work out for me. And for all the people who have told me that medication was the answer for them, it improved just like every possible aspect of their life, when it didn't work for me, I felt like there was something even more wrong with me than I already knew of. Now that I'm more educated in the psychological space and everything, just from my own research, that's all, but now I realize that it's not a one-size-fits-all. There's not one solution that works for everyone, and that's kind of why I'm really bothered by the fact that when one person finds something that works for them and then they have to push it on everyone else, I can't stand it, to be honest, especially medications. I've had people do it about religion and stuff too. They're like, trust me, if you just pray, if you just go to church, like all this stuff, and it's like I'm really glad that that works for you. That's great that it works for you, but that doesn't mean that it's gonna work for the next person too. I just get so frustrated when one person has something work for them, so then they think that's just the solution for everyone. And I've had people actually feel like they corner me almost. Like, I'll be just, maybe my anxiety flares up or something, and someone who has like a touch of anxiety finds out, then I get lectured by them. It feels like they're lecturing me. I'm sure they don't even mean anything by it. Like, they probably don't have ill intentions towards it, but it just feels that way to me. They'll start going on and on about medications and how they've just changed their life, like, all around. And I'm like, that's great that it works for you, but I've been there, I've done that, I've tried that. Even if I start to explain that I've tried medication already, been there, done that, then they question what medications have I tried. I will say, well, there's been several that I've actually tried, and they're like, no, you need to try this one. And then they'll go on and on about it. I swear it sounds like a commercial, and they're just like swearing by this medication, and I'm like, okay, that's great, it works for you, stop pushing it on me, please. But then it's like, I'm like, usually my response is always, that does sound nice, because it does. They'll say like, oh, now I have all this energy and I'm not just depressed in bed all day. And I'm like, that does sound great, but again, I've already tried that. Don't get me wrong, I do appreciate when people try to just share with everyone else what works for them. Maybe give some suggestions. That's totally fine and understandable. What I have a problem with is when people just continue to push on it. That's where I'm like, okay, I appreciate the suggestion. Thank you. Move on. Maybe I'll try it, maybe I won't. It's just sometimes like it doesn't even affect them in the slightest way possible. I was 13, that's when I got diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder before all of the specifics. And ever since I got that very first initial diagnosis and everything, that's when all of the doctors were just insisting on medication. Like, all they wanted to do, they just wanted to put me on medication and that be it. That was just all they wanted to do. And I just, for whatever reason, I had a lot of reasons, but I did not feel comfortable with trying medication just as the first option. Like, I wanted to try everything else that I could first. Eventually, I felt like, okay, I've tried enough now. Like, this is just fast forwarding through. I'm not sure how old I was exactly. I had to still be a young teenager, but I was a teenager at some point. And I felt like, okay, I've finally tried everything. I give up. Like, I was so desperate at this point. Like, at this point, the suicidal thoughts had taken over completely. I could not take it anymore at all in any aspect. So I'm like, alright, let's just try the medication, whatever. The first medication they put me on was Xanax. Back then, I was clueless. I still don't know very much about medications. I am a lot more educated now than I was then though. And I know that some are for both anxiety and depression. Some are more so towards anxiety, some are more so towards depression. Like, I get all that now. But then I was clueless, and honestly, I thought nothing of it, to look into it, to research it, nothing. It does, like, I was just trusting whatever the doctors were telling me at this point. I felt like I had put up a fight long enough with these doctors, so I'm like, whatever they're recommending, whatever they're suggesting, I'm just gonna do it and see what happens. And I know you have to stay on them for a few weeks, a month, whatever, to see the results. Like, I understood all of that. But I also know that there are... I just flipped that. I also know that there are some medications where you can just take on the spot and it helps. Like, there's a lot of different things for different people. And I know that it helps a lot of people too. So I'm like, let's just try this. Here's the story of what happened the first time I took it. I was hesitant, but then my anxiety ended up getting so bad one day, I was just like, give me it, I'm just gonna take it. Here's the thing. I know that we asked, I don't know if it was the doctor or the pharmacist, to be honest. It might have honestly even been both of them, because I know for sure we confirmed here. Full disclosure, I can't swallow a pill. I still can't. I don't know why. That's a whole other subject on its own, but I can't swallow a pill. And I know that we confirmed, okay, can this be crushed? Well, I crushed it. I crushed the Xanax. And it was a horrible experience. Should have never been crushed. I did not know that. So I had to go to the store this particular day. And I was freaking out because at this point in time, I could not go to a store. I couldn't go even in the car. I couldn't drive. There were different time frames for each one. They were all separate. But at this time, I couldn't even go to a store. So I'm like, let's just do this. And again, didn't think anything was going to happen. Well, I was wrong. Don't crush Xanax. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Can you get high off of Xanax? Because I think that's what happened. Listen, I went to the store. I was not nervous. I just couldn't see anything. I could see, but it was just like everything was, it was crazy. And I walked into like, I was walking into shelves. I was walking into people, like, I walked into these old people. I'm sorry, they were probably young. But I walked into people, I walked into shelves. It was just horrible. It was like I was high. I didn't know what it was then. Not that I know now either. But I think that's what happened. Even after being scarred for life from the incident with the Xanax, I still did try a few other medications. I never had any kind of benefit from any of them. I had negative side effects. When you're a teenager especially, just kidding, now too, one side effect you don't want is weight gain, and I kept getting that with every one that I was trying. And it was like I kept screwing everything up in my body because I would try a new medication and then I'd get off of that, try something else. Like, it was a whole mess. But that was one side effect you just do not want. Like, and I kept getting it. So you're like, what kind of side effect could even be worse than that? Well, I had increased suicidal thoughts. I didn't think it would even be possible to have any more suicidal thoughts than I was already having. They were like deep, dark thoughts that were just, it was insane, it was overwhelming, it was horrible, and I just never thought that it could even be any worse than it was until I took some of these medications. And to be honest, I don't remember all of the names of the medications, but even if I did remember all of the names of the medications, still everyone gets different side effects, and it helps some people, it makes some people worse, so that doesn't even really necessarily matter. And I'm not trying to scare anyone away from trying medications, please don't think that. I'm just talking about my experience. That's why I keep saying a million times, I can only say about my experience. I don't mean to discourage anything. I'm not encouraging either. I'm just neutral here, just talking about my experience. First I tried Xanax. I'm pretty sure I accidentally got high off of Xanax. Then I tried some other ones and experienced unfortunate weight gain. Oh, still dealing with that. And increased suicidal thoughts. It was so bad. It was just so bad. But I do know of a lot of people who medication seriously helps a lot. So I'm definitely not discouraging at all. If you feel like you want to try medications and that's what your therapist or your doctor thinks, you could always try it. Just remember though, you won't see any kind of results right away. That was the hardest part for me with all of them when I would try, was I had to wait a few weeks, a month, just to even see if it was going to work or not. That's why I was saying in another video, like, it's terrifying to put myself out there and to tell my story and have people watch me. I hate everything, like my voice, my looks, everything. So it's pretty terrifying and embarrassing, really, but it's what I needed. It's what I needed 10 years ago. And I hope that it can reach someone who feels like I maybe did. Especially even something like medication, because I felt like something was even more wrong with me because I saw it helping everyone else who tried it. But it's okay if you've tried medication and maybe it didn't work for you. It's okay if you don't feel like you want to try medication. And if you do try it and it works for you, that's great too. There's nothing wrong with you for taking medications. I know a lot of times people, including myself, I'm guilty of it too, I've said, I don't want to have to feel like I'm depending on medication to get through. And I'm realizing that's not what it is at all. That's just helping you balance out everything you have going on, and it's just making it a little bit easier for you to get through the days.